Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Piero Scaruffi. This program is sponsored by the Stanford Deans of Engineering, Humanities and Sciences, and Medicine, by Chemical Engineering, and by Continuing Studies. LASER stands for Leonardo Art Science Evening Rendezvous. It's been going on since 2008. Over the years, we've had more than 400 speakers, usually in person on campus. And there are laser series now in more than 50 universities worldwide. Go to leonardo.info if you want to know about lasers in other locations. Go to lasertalks.com if you want to know more about the series that I personally chair. And at lasertalks.com, you can find the full bios of our speakers and links to their website. We have 4 independent presentations today. And so I will introduce each speaker separately, actually. You can see on the screen where the speakers, and you probably already know if you are logging in. Kat Mustatea has presented before. It was a wonderful discussion. I encourage you to check the video of her previous laser. She's a transmedia playwright and artist whose work has been presented nationally and internationally. Again, if you go to lasertalks.com, you'll find an extensive bio and links, and a link to her website. I was also browsing some of the videos on YouTube. There's quite a few, quite interesting material around. Anyway, Kat, all yours.
Thank you, Piero, for having me. I'll try to remember to speak up. I usually have a soft voice. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about an instrument that I developed named Body Mouth, and it's an instrument for embodied language. But before I do that, just very briefly, the kinds of things I do as an artist. I call myself a transmedia playwright because I think of language as my medium, and most often the works that I present are narrative live performances, which are in some way mediated by cutting edge technologies. I think I come from theoretical mathematics and also had a kind of informal education in theater and sort of fell in love with the idea of dramatic storytelling. And my big light bulb moment came when I understood that a lot of the rather absurd premises for my works, such as people turning into lizards, are uncanny, and so is technology. And so it makes sense that the kinds of storytelling I do often involves technology. So just very quick examples. There was Lizardly in 2021, which was about people turning into lizards. And that was a mixed reality drama. So it involved live actors in front of you wearing Rococo suits, mocap suits that drove these giant lizard avatars that were also part of the experience. So there was always a tension between which of these are the reality. I did an absurd sound walk called A Linguistic Bestiary of Oyster Island, which is set in the New York Harbor on an island called, well, it's not quite an island. Oyster Island is really just a piece of rock in the middle of the water, and it's only an island for about 2 hours at unusually low tides. Otherwise, it's just submerged. So in this Atlantis-like location, I set a sound walk where you're experiencing different species, different languages by species that are hybrids. So what happens when a human starts turning into a red-beard sponge, and what are their language like? I've also previously presented Laser Talks Voidopolis, which is an augmented reality book made to disappear, which retells Dante's Inferno, set in a pandemic-ravaged version of New York City, and that was published by MIT Press. And just very recently, I was the librettist for Lexia, which is an AI opera It was created for human voice and also for AI percussive processes, and does tell the story of a kind of instrument in its own right, a voice activated AI of the future that acts as a memory bank for all of human memory. But the project that I'm going to talk about tonight kind of plays with a fascination I've had throughout my career, working with words, with language specifically, and making language vivid in live performance, which often also involves work with gesture. I frequently work with dancers or actors who are trained in movement, because that marriage between language and gesture, which is also a language of a kind, to me seems absolutely fascinating. I became obsessed a few years ago with the possibility that if I put sensors on a dancer's body, could I get the data from these sensors to do what could I do with that data? And I really wanted to figure out, could I synthesize speech in real time with my gesture? Therefore, could I speak with my body and with the gestures of my body? So I will try to play this video, and hopefully the sound comes across. If it doesn't, then someone please make some gesture to me and I'll stop and move on and send you a link later. But let's see if this works.
Far good.
Oh, good. Okay.
We are placing trackers on a dancer's body, and as they move, the precise spatial data is mapped via custom software to a series of values in a vocal synthesizer. The dancer pronounces words phoneme by phoneme by performing specific gestures in sequence. Quite literally, the dancer's body becomes the mouth. I am you. All of speech is a series of frequencies. A, E, M, S. We are using the same technology as in modern voice assistants, like Siri or Alexa, except we have to render those frequencies in real time. The mechanics for speech production are completely different from the mechanics for movement. So the real challenge here is a design problem of mapping two musculatures that are completely unalike. There was a lot of trial and error.
So I will just keep talking, just to give you a little more background. I'm just going to try to skip over this video. And first I have to do that. Okay. So the inspiration here really started from a couple of years, actually mid-pandemic, when I did a work called Hieroglyph, which was remote and involved a dancer dancing alone in a studio and wearing a sensor on his body, and we started to explore as a team, working all remotely across the world during the pandemic, what might we do with that data that could be interesting as a live performance. And there were other people in my team who were fascinated. Could we turn data into sound or music, or could we turn data into visuals? But because I come from theater and from language specifically, I was like, no, I want to make language. And then there had been previous projects on my mind, like Bill T. Jones's experiments with Google, that seemed right on brand for Bill T. Jones, combining both dance and speech and language. So yeah, it became the central question. I want to turn my body literally into a mouth, and can I do that? It took about 3 years, and it was really the insight was around the one of the secret sauces here has to do with how to exactly map from the body and its musculature to the mouth, or and vice versa, to the mouth and its musculature. So think about the various variables that go into you producing any particular frequency, a sound, any phoneme, the position of your tongue, the way whether your lips are open or closed, the constriction in your windpipe, your breath is part of speech as well, which is often overlooked. My first really rather awkward insight was to produce vowels of any kind, you just need an XY axis. So the production of vowels, it has to do with the width of your tongue in your mouth, and also whether your tongue is front to back in your mouth. It's a little more complicated than that, but let's say that's kind of how vowels work. And I thought, okay, well, XY axis, that's easy. I can just, put an XY axis on my hand, and here I am. Here, I'll try to show you, here I am. I can just stand around moving this one hand in the air, and there I am making vowels. But once I made this happen, I invited a dancer to come into the studio and try it out. And the poor dancer just stood around completely bored, just moving this one hand. And it became very clear that to create an effective mapping between body and mouth, to create an evocative and exciting mapping, you have to be able to involve the body in fully, not only one part of the body. So that was one of the criteria for meeting this design challenge. Another criteria was that it's just sustainable physically on the body, that whatever gesture I'm trying to do, I don't fall down. And then a third criteria was, can I easily reach all of the phonetic palette so that I can produce any particular word quickly and fluently from gesture to gesture. And I worked off of how do I render first vowels and then consonants, but phonetics is really about putting together vowels and consonants. So you're not just pronouncing a consonant like ma, you're automatically pairing it with some kind of vowel expression as well. So if I can make ma, can I make mi and mo? Can I do the opposite phoneme? So if I make ma, can I make a kind of the reverse gesture to get to and then also can I make an M at the beginning as an entry consonant and an M at the end? So can I make mam? All of those, that how to put all of that on the body was quite a complex thing. And then that's just the design problem, assuming that you can already synthesize speech in real time, which is itself a complex challenge. As mentioned, voice synthesizers like Siri or Alexa are actually not real time. They take a second or two to produce a sentence in response to your query, but that sentence is full computation. It's not real time, because even that 1 second delay, it's doing something in the background, and I needed to be able to do this really one-to-one in real time. So I used an out-of-the-box voice speech synthesizer called Pink Trombone initially because it exists. It's kind of an oldish project, and it doesn't do a very good job of full consonant pronunciations for a lot of the consonants. So getting that older and somewhat more primitive open source project to really do very good pronunciations was itself a task. And there are now much better, I mean, there's been a lot of research in speech synthesis, so the technology is much more sophisticated than even a few years ago. Here's some of the sketches that went into just thinking about how to get sensors. Let's say currently I work with 2 on the wrists and 1 or 2 on each ankle. How to get such simple data points, providing just position in space, how to get that to vocalize and to synthesize speech. And it became really exciting, not only as a vocal instrument, but also as a choreographic instrument. Because, for example, if I decide that what I am measuring in order to even make sound is the distance between my 2 wrists. So in a current model that I built there, if I pull my wrists apart, the instrument is silent, but in order to vocalize, I need to bring my 2 wrists together. Well, that is a certain kind of choreography, but that's not the only choreography possible. It might be that I decide I want to measure the distance between my wrist and my leg in order to vocalize, and that requires me to do this gesture where I reach down to my feet and become a completely different kind of creature effectively. So something about the expressiveness possible in every single design choice related to how one pronounces words here became really, really evocative and exciting. Something that is possible for this instrument is I can put all of the phonetic world onto one performer's body. So they have a complete speech ability with their one body. But I can also start doing really beautiful things like spreading the variables across 2 different bodies. So in the image to the left here on the screen, you have 2 performers who have to coordinate both of their bodies in order to create one voice. And there's something really poetic about that. And then there's no reason that what you're measuring is actually in relation to another human. You can make it so that in order to vocalize, I need to bring my wrist too close to the wall, and so the choreography becomes in relation to other objects or walls or other features of the environment. So for me, you know, I do work with live performance of all kinds, and that was a way to enter into a kind of creaturely choreography and a level of expressiveness that is far beyond just creating speech in its own right. But of course, creating speech is an exciting thing too. And so I'm not going to go fully into this entire diagram, but there is a kind of pattern that each dancer has to learn for how to create an M and how to create an N. And they have to map out sometimes ahead of time. Sometimes they get so good at the instrument that they're able to kind of do it in front of you. You give them a word and they could kind of work out how to move their bodies in order to do it. But you can also just kind of map it out ahead of time and to create a full phrase like I am human, I am an alien. A phrase like that has a very specific choreography and space, and has if you imagine that that choreography is unique for every word and every phrase that is pronounced. But it's also possible that one dancer finds a way to bring their hands together differently than another. For example, we have one, I'll skip over this, but I went ahead too far. For example, we have one dancer that I work with who has very long limbs, and so he often, in order to bring his wrists together, just reaches behind rather than in front, and it has the same effect. It creates the same phoneme, but it's a gesture particular to him to create that phoneme. So there's both a fixed pattern, but then there's also a great deal of open interpretation for the dancer to be expressive in between the requirements for speech of the instrument. In designing the instrument, these are some diagrams just for how I started to think about where sounds are placed in the mouth, and then also I found this great list of English phonemes by their commonness. So that started to feature into the design of the instrument, because I tried to make the phonemes that are most common, most close to or easiest to reach, and those that are least common involve the most like complex of the gestures possible. I did want to, I feel like this is the sort of project that is best brought to light by answering questions, and I'm sure there are some. So, but I do want to just show you an excerpt of a performance that we did last year as part of the Guthmann Prize for New Musical Instruments. We were a finalist at that competition, and this is the performance we gave, because I think it starts to describe how an instrument like this it has this level of expressiveness, and I feel like I've only started to scratch the surface of what's possible in live performance. So for this small sample, you're seeing two dancers vocalizing, and at the beginning they're going to vocalize together, and then they split apart and vocalize each independently, and we're able to pitch each of their voices differently, so they behave as a kind of chorus with each their own pitch.
Alone.
I'll let you all go online and watch the rest of these videos, but I collect the materials as we develop them at bodymouth.org. There are a few more videos there that kind of dig
Excellent.
into.
Thank you, Kat. Also, always very, very interesting.